The soldiers of World War I expected many things: mud, shells, gas, fear. What they did not expect was to fight alongside ghosts. Across the trenches of Europe, thousands of soldiers reported seeing figures in the fog. Not enemies, not allies, something else. Some claimed they saw glowing soldiers walking through gunfire. Others heard footsteps in empty trenches. Entire units swore they were guided by shadowy figures during battle. Historians still debate what really happened: mass hallucination, propaganda, exhaustion, or something far stranger. So tonight, sit back and hit that subscribe button as we're stepping into the fog of the First World War to uncover the strangest paranormal encounters that some soldiers claimed were real. In August 1914, the war had barely begun. The British Expeditionary Force, outnumbered and exhausted, was retreating near the Belgian town of Mons. German forces were advancing fast. Ammunition was running low. Casualties were mounting. By all logic, they should have been overwhelmed. But then, something strange began circulating through the ranks. Soldiers claimed they saw figures in the sky. Not smoke, not artillery flashes. Figures. Some described glowing shapes hovering above the battlefield. Others swore they saw a line of radiant warriors standing between them and the advancing German army. And then came the most dramatic version of the story: that angelic beings, sometimes described as medieval archers, appeared and shielded British troops from destruction. The event became known as the Angels of Mons. Newspapers soon picked up the story. Churches referenced it. Civilians back home found comfort in it. But here's where it gets even stranger. The origin of the legend can be traced to a short story written by author Arthur Machen. He published a fictional tale called The Bowmen, describing ghostly archers from the time of Battle of Agincourt appearing to aid British soldiers. It was meant to be fiction, but readers believed it was real. And as the story spread, actual soldiers began reporting similar experiences. Was it propaganda designed to boost morale? Mass suggestion? Combat stress? Or did desperate men in the fog of war truly believe they witnessed something beyond explanation? Historians largely agree there's no official military record confirming supernatural events at Mons. But that didn't stop the legend, because in times of fear and uncertainty, people often see what they need most. And in 1914, what they needed was hope. If the Angels of Mons sounded dramatic, the trenches were something far more personal. World War I was fought in narrow, muddy trenches that stretched for hundreds of miles across Europe. Cold, dark, waterlogged, constantly under threat. And inside those trenches, soldiers began reporting something deeply unsettling. They weren't alone. Men on night watch claimed they heard boots walking behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Others reported seeing figures moving through the fog in no man's land, but when flares lit up the sky, the shapes vanished. Entire units described shadowy soldiers standing silently at the edge of trenches, watching. Not attacking, just watching. Some even claimed they saw fallen comrades walking again, silent, pale, disappearing into the mist. Now remember, these were trained soldiers, not ghost hunters, not mystics. Exhausted young men surviving artillery bombardments and gas attacks. But the reports were consistent. Whispers in empty dugouts, footsteps in flooded trenches, silhouettes that didn't cast shadows. One officer wrote about seeing a man in outdated uniform standing calmly under shell fire, only for the figure to dissolve into smoke. Was it battle fatigue? Sleep deprivation? The psychological strain of constant bombardment? Modern historians suggest something called trench hallucinations, stress-induced visions caused by trauma, darkness, and fear. But here's what makes it fascinating. Many of these sightings happened in groups. Multiple soldiers describing the same figure, the same movement, the same silent presence in the fog. And when thousands of men across different sectors report similar experiences, it becomes more than just a campfire story. The trenches weren't just battlefields. They were pressure cookers of fear, grief, and anticipation. And sometimes, in places soaked with loss, the mind sees things it can't fully explain. Or maybe it remembers. That being said, not all of the strange experiences of World War I happened on the battlefield. Some happened before the battle even began. Across multiple armies, soldiers wrote letters home describing an unsettling feeling, a sense that they wouldn't survive. And sometimes, those letters arrived after they were gone. One British soldier reportedly told his friend he had dreamed of his own death the night before an assault. He described the exact field, the exact moment, even the direction he would fall. The next day, it happened. Another wrote to his family saying he had a strange calm, as if he already knew his fate. He urged them not to worry. He said everything would be all right. He was killed within hours of writing it. Stories like this spread quickly through the trenches, men dreaming of battles that hadn't happened yet, soldiers waking suddenly in the night, convinced something terrible was coming. Entire units feeling a shared sense of dread before major offensives. Now, modern psychology offers explanations. When people live under constant threat, their minds become hyper-aware of danger. Patterns emerge. Anxiety sharpens intuition. Sometimes, a soldier might sense the odds weren't in their favor. But here's what makes these stories linger. Many weren't vague, they were specific. Times, places, moments described in detail before they occurred. Were they coincidences? Subconscious predictions? Or something deeper? A mind preparing itself for what it somehow already knew? War compresses time, it heightens emotion, and it pushes people into states of awareness they may never experience again. In the trenches, surrounded by uncertainty, many soldiers began to feel as though the future wasn't entirely hidden, that sometimes they could sense it approaching. And whether it was instinct, intuition, or something unexplainable, those premonitions became one more strange chapter in a war already filled with the unbelievable. More than a century has passed since the guns of World War I fell silent. The trenches collapsed, the shell craters filled in, the battlefields grew quiet. But according to many visitors, they were never truly empty. Across France and Belgium, former battlefields like the Somme, Ypres, and Verdun are now peaceful countryside. Rolling fields, memorials, cemeteries. Yet locals, historians, and tourists have all reported strange experiences. Visitors walking alone at dusk claim they hear distant marching where no one is present, soft footsteps on paths with no visible source, whispers carried on the wind across empty fields. Some say they've seen figures standing near old trench lines, soldiers in outdated uniforms that disappear when approached. Night watch staff at memorial sites have reported hearing voices in multiple languages when the grounds are empty. Cameras occasionally capture unexplained shapes in the mist. And then there are the metal detectorists. To this day, the soil of these battlefields still yields helmets, bullets, and personal items from over a century ago. Entire sections of land are known as the Iron Harvest, where remnants of war continue to surface every year. It's a reminder that beneath the grass, history hasn't fully moved on. Now, there are logical explanations for many of these reports. Wind across open fields can carry sound in strange ways. Fog distorts shapes. Expectations can influence perception. When people visit places known for tragedy, the mind can fill in the silence. But for those who've experienced something firsthand, the feeling is hard to dismiss. Because standing on a battlefield where thousands once stood, fought, and fell, it's easy to imagine echoes lingering. Whether psychological or paranormal, many visitors say the same thing. The battlefields feel occupied. Not in a frightening way, but in a quiet, solemn presence, as if history itself hasn't completely left. World War I most certainly changed warfare forever. Machines grew louder, battles grew deadlier, and the trenches became places where reality sometimes felt uncertain. Soldiers reported angels in the sky, phantom figures in the fog, premonitions that arrived too accurately, and battlefields that still feel occupied today. Maybe it was stress, maybe it was coincidence, or maybe in places marked by so much loss, history leaves an imprint. Whatever the explanation, one thing is clear. Many soldiers believed they were never fighting alone. If you enjoyed this journey into war and the paranormal, stick around and hit that subscribe button, because next time, we're heading into the jungles of Vietnam, where soldiers claimed something was watching them from the trees. History is strange, war is stranger, and sometimes the battlefield remembers.